Hey guys, it's Thomas. I hope you're well. I hope your family and loved one are well as well. This is really unprecedented time, and it's not easy for everybody. But one thing to remember is that it's temporary. So hopefully things are going to get better very soon. I want to give you a quick update about the real estate market in Toronto and the GTA. So when we look at the number of March, if we have a quick overview, we can believe things are going well. Number of transactions went up since last year by 12.3%. Selling price is up versus last year by 14.5%. So you can say, oh, March market is doing well, right? But when we look a little bit deeper, what we have noticing is that the first 2 weeks of March were kind of business as usual, and the two second week of March where people were confined and where everybody start um, working and doing as many activities in terms of real estate. So if we look at February versus March, we are looking at minus almost 21% in terms of the number of transactions. And in terms of price, we are at minus 1.1%. Um, so if we look at the number on a weekly basis, right there, so the first week of March and the second week of March. So versus last year, in the first week of March was almost up 50% in terms of the number of sales. But the second week of March, we are looking at minus 16% versus last year in terms of sales. So we really see like where all the confinement measure took place and the drop in activity in the real estate market. So in terms of new listing, we are at minus 18% for the last 2 weeks of March versus the first 2 weeks of March last year, versus plus 33% for the first 2 weeks. But what's very interesting is the price. So on the first 2 weeks, it was 16.8%, which is kind of in line with the average on the past couple of months. But for the last 2 weeks, the price still went up around 10.5% year over year. So what happened is that at first there were a lot of listings that were on the market, but the decision to put them on the market was to prior to the COVID-19 confinement measure. And here come the measure. We have less buyer coming into the market, but still a lot of listing. And so for that short period of time, it was a buyer market, which is very rare in the Toronto and GTA market. But after a while, as at the same time, buyer were putting off the market, but seller was putting off as well. So if you have a market where you have still the same number of listing but less buyer, this become a buyer market, and the price are going to go down. But if after a while the seller are catching up and the seller are putting off the market as well, then you have kind of the same balance as before. But instead of having 4,000 transactions like for 2 weeks, you have 3,000 transactions for the past 2 weeks. So as long as the buyer and the seller withdraw at the same rate and at the same time, the market kind of have the same balance. So plus 10.5% is very good considering what's happening on the market, but it's just a reflection of buyer and seller pulling off at the same time. So a lot of people are like postponing their decision. And another one that I want to show you is, so this one is the number of sales versus the average selling price. So average selling price is in kind of dark orange, and the sales are in blue. So as you can see, the number of sales varies more sporadically than the average price. And like comes 2019, you can see that they're kind of evolving at the same rate. So as long as the number of transaction drops, but as long as there is the same amount of buyer and seller, the price are going to stay pretty much consistent. So at this point, it's really I'm looking at the market on a weekly basis, and in these very emotional times, in order to make sense of what happening, I really look at the data, I really look at the number to try to look and find for a pattern. So far, it's very hard to predict what's going to happen in the future. Maybe the confinement will last another month, maybe another 3 months. But what we know for sure is that it's temporary. There is very smart people who are looking for a vaccine. We are seeing the confinement, the benefit of confinement in China. Wuhan is opening the city again. In Italy, things are starting to plateau and get better in terms of the number of infection. So we are in a temporary situation, unprecedented times, but temporary. And at some point, it's going to get better. Um, so right now, you might be asking yourself, should I buy to take advantage of the market? Should I sell if I need to? So it's really on the per case situation. But we are still seeing, and it's on a weekly basis, but we are still seeing activity on the market. There are still people who needs to buy. There are still people who needs to sell. And despite the confinement, there is people who needs a home because they already sold their previous home. So even though the activity drop, there is still activity happening. And one way to do that in a safe way is to implement measures. So for example, we're doing a lot more virtual tour. Um, if someone needs to see a property in person, we make sure they haven't traveled in the past 14 days and so on. Um, but there is still action happening on the market, and I think at the end of the day, for sure, and the longer it drags, the harder it's going to be to recover, like from an economic standpoint. But I really believe that the fundamental of the Toronto market are very healthy. Toronto is a growing city, which attract a lot of qualified buyer, a lot of tech company, and so on. And still the fundamental are still there. Right now, everything is kind of on freeze, but once again, it's going to get better. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you have some more specific question, feel free to hit me up, and I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you guys. Take care, be safe, and talk to you soon. Bye.